And that's the bottom line. Want a war? You're going to get one.
The queen will rise to the top. Oh, yeah.
Now you want to get nuts? Come on, let's get nuts.
Hard work pays off. Dreams come true. Bad times don't last, but bad guys do.
God, I'm really getting to love Wednesday nights. Always enjoy talking football. Back by popular demand, we had to go back to PFN and ask Zach if he had some more time for us. Got a few things we want to hit, so let's bring him on. Hi, Zach. How are you doing?
Hey, Ed. Good to see you, man. I'm doing pretty good this week. And, today's not too shabby as well. So one step closer to season kickoff is always makes for a bright day for me. So more footballs very soon on the way.
As you can see, tonight we have another team preview night. We got DC and Arlington coming up. So as you can see, I'm sporting a DC flag here. So got to represent, got a super fan coming on for DC when we get done with our little intro talk here. So we're looking forward to that. So why don't we start off with a little bit of news? So what have you got for UFL news?
Well, I mean, we're just kind of going around and, checking things up. We have rosters that are kind of solidifying. And, I think one of the things people have been wondering about roster positions was, we have 3 QBs apiece per team. And folks are wondering, with the retiring of Jamar Smith, who are the Birmingham Stallions going to bring in to fill that gap at that third quarterback, whether it's compete for that 2 spot or kind of be that emergency QB mentor role that Jamar was. And so, I was surprised to see this, but what makes sense given the caliber the Stallions look for. But our own James Larson reported that Case Cookus will be stepping in for that role. He's going to be signing on as the third quarterback for the Birmingham Stallions. And I imagine that transaction will be coming down on the UFL PR wire soon enough. But, pretty big name in terms of the spring football scene. For those that don't remember, was the starting quarterback eventually for the Philadelphia Stars, the one that led them to the 2022 USFL championship game before unfortunately breaking his arm in said game and having to go out. And then also was in the season for 2023 for the Stars, had a pretty good year that year. And then was with the Showboats just last year for a bit of a rocky year under John DeFilippo. But, Case has a really good track record. He's got a lot of knowledge, has been through the game in multiple levels, whether it's the NFL or here in different stops. And really quick, just it feels like the Ed, and I wanted your thoughts on this, but it's basically a move that I think is just to solidify and get a veteran presence in there, because I'll be honest with you, as much as I do love Case Cookus, that's to me not who's going to be starting in Birmingham. It's either going to be Matt Corral or Alex Magoo, if we're being honest. I really think Case is there as someone that I think is more of the mentor coaching role. Remember, he was going to go and start a coaching journey here. That was what was the popular talk, was he was possibly going to be retiring for that scene, but he's back in full swing. And I think some of the things he wants to get down is he can kind of more add as a mentor role, or as more of another voice in that room to maybe help with coaching on the sideline, if anything, if not there for possibly to see if maybe we can get some more reps if he needs to be available. But I think he's at least minimum the emergency, but could potentially compete for the backup. But I don't feel like that's likely.
Yeah, my thoughts are that I think it's really Magoo's job to lose. So I don't know. I watching Coach Holtz last year was an eye opener for me. I followed Martinez for several years when he was at Nebraska, and really got used to his style of play. And watching the way the coach handled him last year was really an eye opener for me. And in some ways during the season, I kind of felt like maybe Martinez kind of got tired of that coaching style. And by the end of the season, it looked like he wasn't maybe necessarily taking to it that well. But tell you what, he ended up being the MVP. So, hats off to him. Let's bring on Brett the Hitman.
What's up, fellas?
Hey,
we round him up every week. We got to kind of start scouting the neighborhood and find out where he's at and lead him up into the double wide deer stand. So we got him back up there sitting again and looking good. So we decided that we would bring Zach on tonight and talk about the elephant in the room. So Brett, I'm going to let you take it away, because anybody who was on X yesterday knows that when you start talking about the labor dispute, Brett's has no lack of opinion. So what do you think about that, Brett?
It's just it's not a good look, and me and Zach spoke briefly yesterday, and we're pretty positive this thing's gonna get worked out, but it's went too far. And for the Players Association, I can't even remember their legal name. I know the guy that started it. He played with the Seattle Dragons and XFL 2020, and this is their first year to really be in control of the league or the union. The Birmingham or the Steel Workers Union stepped out, and now that this is dragging on, it's not a good look. It's not a good look with the fans. You've got a league going into year 2. I think the league is 13, 14 months old. And this space, whether we like it or not, we're all passionate spring football fans, or you wouldn't be watching this show. It has not technically worked, in our lifetimes. Now, nothing worked until it does, whether it's flying a plane or electricity or whatever. But spring football is a very tough space, very expensive, a lot of hurdles. And this is the absolute last thing we need, in my opinion, when they're still struggling to sell tickets and to build the brand, because it's a brand new brand, and let people know, hey, we're here to stay. This ain't going to be no fly by night. We're not going to be gone in a year. We're not going to be gone midway through the season. And for the players union to be strong arming them and treating it like it's the CFL that's 100 years old or the NFL 75 years old. It just seems like someone with something between their ears in the union, in my opinion, needs to intervene. But I know I'm very, very direct and opinionated, and I went after them on X yesterday. So, Zach, we definitely want your input.
I want to be very clear. I definitely think that there is a space for a said union, without a doubt. And what is going to be, I think that needs to be more discussed is, remember, that they lost their representation, so they have to go back to the board. And you have to remember as well, if for anyone that's followed kind of the relationship between the United Steelworkers and the UFPA, who both have a hand in kind of the origins of the United States Football League Players Association back with the USFL. The Steelworkers took over. The UFPA was put to the side or was kind of removed in capacity. And so it was the USW that was kind of heading this up. Now, the USW stepped aside, moved aside and said, we are disbanding our section of this, but players are free to reestablish and start up their bargaining elsewhere. The UFPA comes in, and the UFPA's main mission, and one thing that it is stated, is that it always felt it could do a better job than the Steelworkers. So I think you have to realize that they are trying to get certain things they feel like the Steelworkers couldn't get. And as much as I know pay is definitely a discussion point, and I think, it's definitely something that's the hot button piece because, money's money. The benefits portion, the healthcare portion, I think is what is the most important. I talked with you in the same combo, Brett, about this. I really think that I think the main thing they want first, along with getting a multi-year tiered deal down, is they really want to see some more concrete given benefits like healthcare that's postseason and a little more consistent postseason as well, if they're staying as a full year contract and these contracts don't expire officially until much later in the year post the end of play. So, that's a little bit, that's what's at play, is you have a new representation that's trying to get a better stance than the old one felt it was not in. And so you're doing that. Meanwhile, you also have a company that, I think from just some of the ways they have operated, from what I can tell, they're trying now more than ever, I feel, get in the green, and it's going to butt some heads. But I do have to reiterate, like Brett, I think they get it done. There's too much at stake for both sides right now. It's just going to be like any union contract, I feel like, or any CBA with sports. They're going to find an agreement. The question is, what's that agreement over, say, 3 years? Like we're talking like the USFLPA. They had a 3-year deal when the original one was made. So what does that 3-year deal look like with increased incentives? Because players are going to ask for that, and the league's going to have to give some increased incentive or some guarantees in that regard when they make one. That's what we'll have to find out. And that pressure will heat up the longer we do not see a signed announcement come to fruition.
Yeah, I've been a finance guy pretty much my whole career, and I've directly been involved in probably more than 15 acquisitions over my lifetime. And one of the first things you always want to do when you acquire other businesses or merge or however you want to, the situation is, you really have this 3 to 5 year window where you've got to streamline costs. You've got to figure out how it's going to work and become profitable within 3 to 5 years. And so for something like this to come up, I totally agree that if you're looking at long term, you really need to get these kind of things sewn up. But at the same point in time, and there's obviously inefficiencies there that are trying to be streamlined, and so you have to make sure that you don't overextend in those first few years. So it's definitely a touchy situation all the way around. I understand the player's position, but yet if you want the UFL league to succeed, you have to you definitely got to work together to make it all work. So.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I just think with the reportedly the players' union's done what, turned down 2 or 3 offers. Surely they understand that the league is losing money. No business, if you've ever been involved with business, marketing, and management positions, the first 3 to 5 years of any business, much less spring football, you're in the red. You're not in the black. You're not making money. So for them to continue to just poke and try to get more and more, I get it, but they do again have to understand this league is losing money. Let's just be honest, and they've got budgets in place for these upcoming years, and this just it's time to get it done, and I'll leave it at that.
It'll get done. I almost guarantee it will, because it's the way it is. I mean, I'm not like the UFL is not the same level as this, but I mean, look, we hear lockouts and things like that on a consistent basis, and it's one thing to have a sport like, say, the MLB or the NHL have a lockout where you have multiple games in a season, kind of that gate revenue. You do have some TV revenue that comes in for a lot of these, but gate revenue is even more supplemental for teams that can do every night. Football's different, and while, you do have Fox who can directly kind of make ad revenue for this entity in one regard, while you do have connections with Disney and the Redbird and such, where the TV is more streamlined in that nature, you still aren't grabbing as much TV dollars as you probably could. Ideally you'd want, like, say, a package that's outside of your ecosystem that makes you instant, like rights fees or whatnot, that would then help supplement and help grow with extra areas. And then you can contribute it more to stuff like, say, other teams' necessities like marketing and ticketing even further, or player salaries or those incentives. But, the thing is that, a lockout, if this were to happen, and I still don't think it will, I have to really stress to folks, I don't think it's going to happen. But if a lockout were to happen and you had to start talking about canceling games, it's a lot different for football, because you have once a week, you have one big show a week where you got to get people in, you got to sell tickets, do the merch, do all that concession work and whatnot. Stadiums only have that too. It's so much different than the arenas where they have multiple games a year. And that importance on the one time you go to a place is so much more focused that the pressure mounts way more to get something set up. So, I mean, you look at the sports scene. It's why the NFL hasn't had, and I'm not trying to compare one to one, but like, if we're talking players union to players union, it's why we haven't seen the NFL have an issue like this since the 80s. And that it's mainly because players don't want it either, because they realize, those incentives like per game pay are much grander for how much chunk you lose if you have to strike or if you have to do something like that. And again, smaller scale. So it's even more detrimental for guys because they want film. It's not just pay. Like, it's one thing to just get stuff for bread on the table. They need film. They need to be out there. These guys rely on playing the game right now. So losing games, I mean, that's just extra slashing away at stuff that maybe a scout could use to determine if you're worth a damn to go to a training camp or a mini camp or wherever the hell you need to be. So there's a lot of pressure on all this, and I really do believe they get it done. It's just, how late do they get it finished, and what would be necessary to put more heat to the flame to get a negotiation and bargaining set up and sealed and delivered.
And that was going to be my second point, Zach, and I wholeheartedly agree with you. If this was all about money, that'd be one thing. But as we all know, the real payday comes for players that are able to make it to the NFL. And so, as you talked about, the importance of game film is very important, and they're not going to have game film if they're not out there playing. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. Yes, you'd like more money, but you also need to get yourself out there if you want to make it to the ultimate dream of the NFL. So I don't know. I guess to be determined, right?
Right. I think also one other thing I want to mention. So like I said, we talk about pay, talk about health benefits. There's also camp fees and camp salary that also comes into play. There's injured reserve salary and how injured reserve works. You got to work out. And one of I think the greatest points that's going to be worked out the most, that also is a monetary thing that the league's got to look at, is roster size. Do you want to grow the roster size, or do you want to kind of keep it closer down to like 50 plus or such? Or say going into camps, because I'm looking at the old USFLPA 3-year plan, and originally it was 58 up until 2024 where they had 75. I mean, you're adding an additional from that old CBA 17 bodies to then go per team. So, that's something that, I think it's pro player for sure. But as a business, you got to remember, they also are going to be like, well, wait a minute now, we got to balance, do we have this cash? But that's what you're going to see in a CBA. And the UFPA, I want to see everything that's tallied like that is, okay, what are you all getting in this deal? How tiered is it? And to me, how many years out is it that the plan is to dedicate towards hypothetically them continuing growth? So we'll find that out before March 28th, no doubt. I would be shocked if we didn't.
Yeah, Brock makes a comment here that, really it's another area too. And as you look at college players and with the NIL deals, they're making, in a lot of instances, they're making a lot more money in college than what they're making in the UFL. But I don't know that that's an apples to apples comparison there, because it's
the injury thing, like I said, it's a big debate, because I know I see that part, injuries incurred during the season, after the season and such. But like, that's, if it, like, you get hurt late in the year, like I saw again, Brett and you and I talked about this, and
we're trying to figure out, if a guy's got a lingering wrist injury, that occurred in week 7, and then finally he goes to a doctor appointment after the season, then another one, and 3-4 months later they finally determine he needs surgery. Does the league cover that?
And I mean, that's part of the grand question. And it's as we know, medical system's not a straightforward thing.
No.
And especially with athletes, you want to get this right. These guys their bodies are their profession. So it's a tough question to solve. Again, players, I completely get it. They want that full coverage, because if they want to come back, and if they want to be ready for that next season or their next opportunity, and they're technically still under contract by league stipulation in a way, or their rights are that way, how do you determine that? And is that technically under that bound? So that's got to be determined in a collective bargaining agreement. And I just don't see them not walking off the table without getting some clarification of that, getting better as time gets on at minimum, that's the thing.
Right. And I've got friends that own insurance companies, and insurance is a sketchy business right now. Let's just be honest. Whether it's, car insurance, home insurance, health care, they want you to pay that premium on the 1st every month or the 31st. But then if you ever go to file a claim, depending on the insurance company and what the claim is, that's when they start trying to mess with you a little bit. I just wish that, again, the players union, this to me, guys, I lived through the AAF being here in Alabama with the Birmingham Iron. And I still say the AAF has really left a black eye on spring football. And that's in Birmingham and Memphis and San Antonio and all those places. And this is a fragile space. And again, we're 14 months old. And the league is absolutely losing a good bit of money, and we don't have that brand yet. We're growing. You can tell we're growing on social media, all the platforms, and you just. I feel like there maybe this players' union is getting a little ahead of themselves. That maybe they're asking for too much. That's my opinion. I get it. I understand. But again, like Brock mentioned with college football, look, Alabama, makes anywhere from $50 to $100 million every year just off the football program. That's every year. That's probably the major 30, 40, 50 schools in college football. Spring football ain't that way, fellas. We're in the red right now. It would take them 5 years to get into the black. So let's not get ahead of ourselves and get greedy.
Okay, well, having said that, we probably need to move on with our team previews, but I wanted to take the opportunity to thank Zach again for coming on for a few minutes to talk it over, and maybe we'll bring you on, and hopefully in a couple of weeks to kick off the season and talk about what was agreed upon. So
yeah, hopefully we hear again sooner rather than later. Be good to discuss those details and any other stuff that's coming up. We're going to see cuts. Hope that first wave, as we saw last year, that's going to be coming sooner rather than later too. So, yeah, good to join on, and can't wait. We'll chat hopefully sooner rather than later, guys.
All right, thanks, Zach.
Good
Thanks,
catching.
brother.
So as we get into team previews. We are going to start off with the DC Defenders, and before we get going, let's courtesy of the UFL, let's see a DC intro here.
We love the energy in the air, the spring in full bloom, and the sun on our face when the district comes alive. So let's get more. More action, more celebration, more unforgettable. More football, more of what you love.
So I wanted to welcome everybody for joining tonight. You know, we got several in the comment line that are mainstays every week. Jay and Excalibur, want to welcome you to the show. Chris Tisdale, I want to thank you for your service. You talk about dedication. We got somebody who we invited on the show tonight, but he's enlisted in the Army, and he's over in Europe right now, but he's up in the middle of the night watching our show anyway. So we want to thank him again for joining, and certainly appreciate everything you do. There's a lot of stats I'll be able to bring up when we're talking DC football, provided courtesy of Chris. Chris put a lot of time into helping us out, even though he wasn't going to be on the show. So we want to thank him for that. So we brought on a guy that I think the DC Defender fan base is going to recognize when I bring him on. But I'll just say, let's bring on Alex Allman. How are you doing, Alex?
Hey, Ed. Hey, Brett. Good to see you guys. Thanks for having me on the show.
So as we in 2024, DC ended up 4-6 for the year, and so much of their, you know, I've got a lot of respect for Reggie Barlow and the DC Defenders, and I know that heading into last season, the expectations were a lot higher. Abrams went down with injury early on, and it kind of derailed the whole season for DC because you definitely were built to run the football, and Abrams getting hurt really threw a dagger into that. But why don't you start us and kind of give us your thoughts on how you see things coming together so far this year?
Well, if you look back at 2024, which I've tried not to, you know, it kind of went off the rails early. So to your point, when, you know, coming into the season, you know, we had Smith, and he's the leading rusher in the UFL coming back from 2023. The ground game was so good. And anybody that's watched the DC Defender show when I was co-hosting that, so much of DC's offense is run pass option oriented. And when you think of run pass option, what comes first? Run. And without that running game, without that threat of the running game, and we saw that last year, not having a back like Smith, not having the consistent offensive line play, really put more on Te'amu to do more things. And then, you know, you had Jackson and Blair, two receivers in 2023 that both ended up in the NFL. So when you look at losing your two best receivers, you lost your best running back before the season even started. You know, we whistled in the graveyard a little bit prior to the season, thinking, we'll plug in, and, you know, we got these guys and these guys will be good. And offensively, you can't lose that kind of firepower and just overcome it. That was point one. I think, though, point two that's interesting when you look at DC from 23 to 24, and then you look at what DC's doing from 24 to 25. So we went 9-1 in 2023. That's before the USFL and XFL merged, as you know. DC stayed pat pretty much last year. If you look at training camp, they brought guys in, they'd bring guys in, give them a workout and get rid of them. They didn't take any of the USFL talent that was out there. They kind of stuck with their roster from 2023. And this year you've seen the exact opposite of that. You know, you've seen a lot of turnover, a lot of guys who had a lot of snaps on defense aren't going to be there. And same for offense. So probably getting ahead of myself a bit, but if you're asking me where I think they're headed, I'm going to be neutral and say I don't know, because there are a lot of unknowns with this team. You know, going to be a lot of new faces and a lot of change, but that's not necessarily a bad thing either.
Yeah, I got a soft spot for Abram Smith because 2 years ago, he was my running back. I was in fantasy league for UFL and be the XFL back then. But he was an animal, man. He was a heck of a runner. So when he went down last year, I live here in St. Louis, but I think I could feel the air come out of the room for the DC fan base because, I mean, again, you take a TN offense built around the rushing attack of Abram Smith and then have that pulled out from under the rug right before the season starts. That's tough.
Yeah, and then I think to 100%. But I did Brahma bullpen earlier this week, and we were recapping. And after listening to the show, I realized, I didn't even mention Blair and Jackson. They were two dynamic receivers we had in 2023, two weapons that Teamo could use in that RPO, and they're gone too.
That really hurt. Tight end, that really hurt you guys.
Bradley Moore getting hurt. That was another one. Now, he's back and hopefully healthy from the knee injury. But you're 100% right because they had Alex Ellis at tight end. They had Caden Jones, Caden Smith. I'm sorry, that used to be with the Giants. He was the other tight end that plugged in. And when Moore was healthy, we would go 3 tight end a bit, right? And try to pound the rock. But losing Bradley Moore, that's a great call out. It hurt losing him too.
And if you look at it this year, if you look at your wide receiving core, Ty Scott, he was one of the top wide receivers in 24. Chris Rowland, I mean, he was not only a good wide receiver, but he was a great special teamer. I mean, when you look at all-purpose total yards, I mean, he was 300 yards over the next nearest, Darius Shepard for the Battlehawks. Darius got a lot of accolades in special teams, but I think Chris Rowland brought a lot more to the table when it comes to the wide receiver position in addition to special teams. So Jacob Copeland.
Yeah, just to point on. Sorry, I didn't mean to go over you there, but with Rowland, he was the offensive MVP in my opinion. I mean, he's a special teams weapon.
Yeah,
we were kind of woeful on offense, and he was he was the guy. He was my player of the year on offense. And then it's funny you mentioned Scott and you missed Rowland, and you mentioned Rowland. That's it for that receivers room from last year. Everybody else is gone. They brought in a bunch of new faces. I think you were getting ready to talk about Jacob Copeland out of Maryland. Interesting prospect there. They got Shaq Davis from South Carolina State, big lanky 6'5" receiver they brought in. But the two that interest me the most would be Lynn Bowden, who they brought in. He was a quarterback you guys might remember at Kentucky. Was drafted into the NFL as a running back. But I think going to be interesting to see him in that offense. And then Cornell Powell, who was with the Chiefs and formerly of the Clemson Tigers. And I like that pickup. That was like 2 days ago, but I like picking him up because that's a 2-time Super Bowl champion and a 2-time national champion in college. That's the kind of winner you want in your locker room. So that, I heard through the grapevine, we had a couple connections through the show, and the team culture we heard last year may not have been as good as what it needed to be. Let's bring in some winners. So that was a good signing. I was glad to see that.
The good thing is you get that running attack going again. Suddenly that play action pass works a lot better. And I tell you what, if you have a solid receiving core like it appears that you have, now that just becomes even that much more effective. Yeah.
We'll see how it pans out. I mean, the one thing I'll say with Jordan, Teamu, they put a lot on him last year. Yeah. And that was tough. And if you watch the RPO, there's usually a single read on the RPO. It's really simple. And, quarterback's got that read and he runs it really good. Often he'll be reading in the outside defender, a linebacker. And if you've got the run game where that guy's coming to fill, you run that slant right in behind it and you can pop it all day long. Last year, guys don't have to fill. They don't have to be overly aggressive because we didn't really have a threat of a running game. So it kind of takes away a lot of that RPO action like you had mentioned.
Yeah. We got one fan comment here. St. Louis versus DC in the XFL Conference Championship will feed families, whether it's in the Battle Dome or Audi Field. I got.
I love you, man.
Two pretty electric fan bases for sure. You know, one thing that I noticed this year, probably more than any other year, is the fact that, you know, face it, is the longer this league's around, it seems like the quality of play just keeps getting better and better. Yeah. You look at the offensive line that DC's putting together. You've got your left tackle, Gunnar Britton. He's projected to be the starting left tackle, but he was on the Buffalo Bills roster this last season. He started 36 games for Auburn. He had all SEC honors in 2022. You know, the minute I mentioned Auburn, I saw Brett kind of shirk a little bit there. So, but I'm sure if he started 36 games for Auburn, Brett probably knows about him.
He's very tough and physical. I think he's got a higher ceiling. I think he's got the potential to get back to the league. Honestly, that was a good pickup for DC. That stuck out to me when they signed him.
And then your left guard, Lamont Gaylord.
Yep.
He started. He was a 3-year starter at center for Georgia. So I'm sure Brett knows about this guy too. So it looks.
One thing that a lot of people didn't pick up on last year, Ed, was one thing that was so dominant about DC in 2023 was that offensive line. No, they were very good and physical. You know, they had Bruno from the St. Louis Battlehawks. That was they were missing quite a few linemen last year. I think DC is set up for a really good run this year.
I hope, because I tell you about the run game last year, 85 yards a game on the ground. But here's the deal. It felt like every short yardage, 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2, 4th and 1, we couldn't line up and run the football. And now Liam Fortadell is, signed in the NFL and he didn't stick. And now we're wondering if he'll come back or not. But, you mentioned, we've got 3 starters coming back with Durant, Mike Maddy at center, and then Galliard at guard. And then I do think Gunnar Britton is probably going to start at tackle, to your point, the Auburn guy. And Jared Williams is another interesting one that they picked up from San Antonio last year. He was cut by San Antonio. DC picked him up, and he ended up starting 3 games for us. And I think the coaches were really high on how well he played. So he's another one to keep an eye out for that could potentially, fill in there as we try to fill, 2 of those open spots.
Well, DC's really heavy SEC offensive line. Their center, I'm not even going to try and pronounce the last name, but Michael Maietti. He started 38 games at center for Missouri and earned all SEC honorable mention. So, and then I know they brought in a right tackle that's also from Missouri that they played side by side for several years. So it appears that, and I'm sure it's not just DC. I'm sure it's all the teams in the league, but it just seems like as we continue to go on with this league, you're starting to see more and more of the, not only picking up the quality coming out of college, but you're also seeing players that had some real NFL experience that are trying to make their way back.
Yeah, no question. Last year we picked up a couple of guys at corner that had NFL experience, and we were talking, hey, that's such a big deal. And now you look at it this year, and I was going through the pickups when you look at the roster turnover, and most of these guys have been in the NFL, either on training camps or they're stuck. We've got a couple guys we picked up on defense that, have had 11, 12 starts in the NFL. So that can give you an idea of the type of talent that is in the UFL overall. So 100% agree with you.
Defensively, last year, DC struggled against the run. They were last in the league as far as rush defense goes.
Yeah. But
they were 3rd against the pass. Their defense gave up 4.7 yards per rush, almost 125 yards a game. So there's definitely some improvement that needs to be done there.
Yeah.
have you seen anything so far that leads you to believe that the 2025 defense is going to be different?
It's going to be very different. You nailed it. I think the biggest thing last year was the inability to stop the run defensively. You mentioned, you give up 125 yards, and you think about like the way the clock runs in spring football, that game is greatly shortened. I mean, we were giving up a lot of yards, and it literally felt like, I remember watching a game, I was breaking down for our show, getting ready. And I mean, we were putting 7, 8 guys in the box and still couldn't stop the run. And that's just getting overpowered. And be honest with you, I said it numerous times on our show, we were soft. So they have gone out in a lot of turnover. We'll get to the defensive backs later, but in the middle of the defensive line, they added Rashad Nichols. He's a guy who was with the Ravens and saw meaningful snaps with the Ravens. They've picked him up now on the interior. We've got Maxwell, who played his college ball at Tennessee Chattanooga. He was with the Bengals, signed a 3-year contract with the Bengals, tore his knee up. And now he's making another go of it here with DC. So, those two pieces alone, and then you look, bringing back Big Joe Wallace for the 3rd year, Darius Johnson, Kevin Atkins, they're all guys that are back. But, who we got rid of or who left, TJ Barnes, we had picked him up from Memphis last year, big guy in the middle, about 50% of the snaps on defense. But I think TJ might have been 31 or 32 years old. Right. And kind of like at the end of his career. Niles Scott is another one that took about 55% of the snaps for us. And Niles is another one that's not with us. They improved there, but I think we really improved at linebacker. I think the linebacker play last year, if I'm being brutally honest, and I guess, they're much better football players than I ever was, and I appreciate everything they did. But, man, did we get beat up? Did we get pushed around? We got some guys in the middle now they've picked up. Momo Sinago is a holdover from last year, really talented guy to Louisville. I'm looking forward to watching him play. But they picked up a guy who ended up at UConn, but he was a Michigan State guy, Boyer Randall, big linebacker, run stopper in the middle. We've got much bigger in the interior with our linebackers there. So he's one I'm really excited to see. Picked up a guy from the University of Pittsburgh, as well, Shane Simon. He was team captain his senior year at Pitt, so a real quality football player there as well. So I think we made some moves at linebacker. I think we're good at edge. We've got some real talent, some speed guys on the edge. We're bringing back Derek Roberson, who I really like, Malik Fisher, who I think was the defensive player of the year for DC. Could have been the defensive player of the year in the league.
Yeah.
He's another good one. So I think we made some good moves to get tougher in that middle and stop the run.
And I think you also brought back a defensive tackle, a guy by the name of Kevin Atkins.
Yes, he's back.
He played for the St. Louis Battlehawks, and he is actually, I know Brett's heard this so many times, he probably wishes I'd shut up. But he is one of the official inductees into EdU and the Lou here in St. Louis for Hall of Fame. And so his picture sits right back here above his Fresno State Bulldog. And he'll be there every show that I do. I told him he would always be in my backdrop. So
love it.
Love that guy. He actually took me sunglass shopping the first home game of the season. I presented him his You and the Lou sweatshirt, and he jumped in the car, took me to the mall, and we went sunglass shopping. Let's just say our tastes wasn't exactly the same.
Yeah. I was listening in when you guys were talking about the strike and everything, and then we'll get back to DC, but you nailed it. This league is growing. We're starting to build our own stars. We're starting to bond with these teams. Let's give it a chance to work. Jay Sternberg, Brett, I'm not going to lie to you, as an ex-Mauler co-host too, before I went to DC, you broke our hearts out there in the championship game out there 2 years ago. I was there.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was didn't end up like we wanted to, but the best team probably won. But it's the building of where we are, and we're building something special. And those Mauler players, like I said, I literally, we were on shows where we were interviewing Matt Mingle, who's now punting hopefully for Memphis this year, and they knew I was a big Chris Blewett fan. And in the middle of the show, they call Blewett. Blewett's laying on the sofa at home, and he jumps on our show and talks to us for an hour. That's the difference. These guys have made themselves so available to the fans.
See, we stayed in the hotel with the Stallions in the league in Canton that year, and that was a blast.
Great. They're great guys.
Yeah.
You know, Boogie was in our fantasy football draft. But I think Jace Sternberger, this is a point. See, if you talk long enough, you remember what you wanted to say. Jace Sternberger had the best text earlier this week when he was talking about sort of the nutshell was paying it forward for these other guys. You know, they're building something now. And, you know, we talked about it on Brahma Bullpen. You know, 10 to 15 years from now, these guys can look back and say, I built something.
Yeah.
If they don't do this thing right, they could screw up the opportunity, not only for themselves now, but think of all the football players you're screwing, you're screwing over going forward. Let's make this thing work. Let's give it a chance to seed and work.
I'm very opinionated and strong opinionated about this. This isn't the time. I understand that they've got a job to do and to try to get the players everything they can, and I get that. But I just feel like this is not a good time everything's so fragile in this space right now. We need to just play ball.
Yep, I'm with you. Sorry about that. Just had to get that in.
So let's. So why don't you talk a few minutes about? You know, I have a very high regard for Reggie Barlow.
Mm-hmm.
I've from afar, I guess, I've watched his coaching style, and he just looks to me like a guy who just naturally commands respect just by the way he carries himself. Take a little bit of time here and tell us what your impression is of him and what the DC fan base thinks of Reggie Barlow.
I think he's fantastic. I mean, I liked him all along because, again, as a former Division III football coach, I respect, you know, he was Division II coaching at, I think it was Virginia State. So he's coached at some of the, you know, the HBCUs. So he hasn't been one of those guys, no offense, Brett, that was at Alabama. He was in the NFL, but, you know, he wasn't in Alabama, you know, with the blinged out locker rooms and the waterfalls. And I think some of the best coaches I've ever worked for were in Division III, where we had to make do with what we had. You know,
right.
I mean, you're coaching. Sometimes you can't recruit to a need. You have to kind of hide where that need was. So it was really neat to see him come in that first year and then not only go 9-1, but he had Fred Keiss, who is the offense coordinator, and he's been at multiple HBCUs as a coordinator. He's a legend in HBCU football. So it's kind of nice to see these two guys from Division II, 1AA, kind of come into a professional league and go 9-1 the first year. I think having Greg Williams back, and of course he was the head coach of the Buffalo Bills there for a while, dialing up the defense. I think there's some continuity in that staff. So, you know, that's bound to help. There's some turnover. I know we're looking for an offensive line coach now. Cody Krill just accepted a job at North Texas yesterday. So we have an opening there, but that needs to be filled. But Barlow's a good guy. Every time you see those clips of him on YouTube or X or TikTok or whatever the heck these things are, you know, he's a delightful guy. And I think he's good for promoting the game in DC. He just needs to follow me. He followed my host on the DC Defender show. Reggie, if you're watching, give me a follow. And Coach Keiss, you need to call me, please.
Show him some respect. Hey, we got to talk real quick about the monsoon game in Birmingham last year with Birmingham and DC. Wasn't that something? I was there for that game, and now we're playing the first game of the year. March 30th in DC, home of the Beer Snake. That's going to be a good matchup. DC gave Birmingham every bit they wanted last year.
Yeah, that was a game too, if you think about it. So, you know, DC lost the opener last year to San Antonio, and there was a game we didn't play very well, but, you know, they had a funky botched field goal that they threw the ball to the center, and he ends up scoring a touchdown. We threw a pick six on a horrible throw. And then we still had a chance to tie the game. I don't know if you guys remember or not, but we get down 1st and goal, and Jake DeLanch, our offensive tackle from the University of Florida, decides he's going to go spit on somebody, and we ended up getting a 15-yard penalty and then a sack, and it took us – anyway, so we got off to a bad start. But then we come back –
That cost him his roster spot too.
and he hadn't landed anywhere, I don't think.
No,
Either. Haven't
no.
seen him since. Turn around and beat Houston the next week. I was at that game in Audi. And then we went to Arlington and won on last second field goal. So we're 2-1. We're going down to Birmingham. And that was the game, that fourth game we got it circled. Hey, they're the best in the USFL. We're coming down there. We win this game. We're 3-1. We're rolling. And you're right. It was a battle. The game was weird with the monsoon and everything. But, Birmingham is the standard. They've won 3 in a row. They find a way to win. And you got to tip your hat. They found good teams find a way to win. DC had their chances in that game. Could have very easily won that game, but they didn't.
Yes.
So let me part the Red Sea here, and let me put up the DC schedule. Right here.
Hey, one last thing, too, before we dive into the schedule.
Yep.
Our corners are completely new. If you go back and look at this, our secondary, and that's going to be something to watch for. Just want to point that out. Defensively, you know how we love to blitz, and Greg likes the zero blitz, and we're going to bring a lot of heat. But, I mean, just looking at it, Kelly's gone. That was 82% of our corner snaps. Conley's gone, 70%. Michael Joseph, 75%. He retired. Nadir Rouse is gone. Santos Ramirez is gone. Whole new cast of characters back there in the defensive backfield. So keep an eye out and see how well we defend Birmingham week 1. That could really tell a lot about how our season's going to go.
I was going to say, because if you look at your schedule, 3 of your first 4 games of the season are at home. So it's going to be very, very, very important for DC to start fast. But, man, I tell you what, I know you can't compare the quality of teams year over year, but when you look at the schedule, at home against Birmingham, then home against Memphis, but then you play at St. Louis, home against San Antonio, at Arlington, at Michigan, at San Antonio. That's killer's row, but yet it seems like no matter what team we talk about, you can make that same argument. So,
yeah.
I
got pushed on a prediction on the San Antonio show 2 nights ago, and I played it about as neutral as you could, and I said 5-5, just because if you're looking at this team, there's so many question marks, and this team could win 9 games, they could win 1. So that's kind of where, when I look at it and I say, okay, offensive line, we got 3 starters back. We got some guys we need to plug in. It's the guys they've picked up could potentially be much better than what they had or not. Defensively, we picked up new guys, could be better or not. So I went 5-5. I think Birmingham the first week will be a tall order, but 2 things. 1, we get Birmingham at home, and 2, we get them the first game of the season. So, that kind of works both ways, right? But we won't be maybe at our best, but maybe it's less of an advantage for them that they aren't their best. The other thing I'd say too is, and this is back when I was coaching, I loved it. I used to love to open with a tough opponent because it always kept you. It was a different tempo in camp when you're facing somebody in week 1 that's good. Everything changes. You're putting in your installs and everything. You don't want to look too far ahead, but in the back of your mind, you're getting ready. And I think it's great for DC that we get to open with the best team in spring football, and we open with them at home. What more could you ask for? So if we're going to get them, that's the time to get them. And then Memphis is interesting because they have Jaron Horton now dialing up the defense. They've got tons of new faces on their defense, a lot of ex-Maulers, and I love those guys. A couple of the ex-coaches from the Pittsburgh Maulers that I'm still in contact with are going to be at Memphis, and they're going to be a hard team to pull against in this game. But they're not last year's Memphis team. They won't be. It's going to be a completely different culture and a different bunch in Memphis. And then, of course, you know how it is. You go to St. Louis. I mean, heck, we won out there when Abram broke a long run a couple of years ago. But and last year we really competed. But you guys were down to your 13 quarterback too, I think, right? You had a guy who hadn't started in 4 years or something. You guys still beat us out there 26-21. But we're a 5-5 team. The Brahmas at home, who knows? They got a new quarterback. Defensively, they're going to be very good. Arlington, they got our boy, Perez back. That's an X factor, and they've had our number. 2 years ago they were tough. In 2023, we barely got by them. And then we lost to them in the championship game when it counted. Last year, we beat them down there on a last-second field goal. And then a game we were at to end the season, Perez led a game-winning drive and beat us in Audi Field. Michigan, I think, is going to be fantastic. I think Bryce Perkins is a difference maker at quarterback. They get EJ Kelly. I think they've got him down in Memphis now. But I think if Bryce Perkins had been healthy and Hills had been healthy, they really could have given Birmingham more of a run on their money in the championship game.
I agree.
You do?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Well, I will say, Alex, is you and I and Brett, like to say Luis Perez. I got a guy backstage here that I'm going to be bringing on shortly that is going to tell us the proper way to say his name. And we like hearing it so much that we're going to let him know that every time we say King of Spring, he can fill in the blank and say his name afterwards, because I can listen to him say it all day long. So,
well, it's funny. You can tell the Arlington guy. I'll leave you guys with this quick story. But my daughter's a huge Arlington Renegades fan. She has been for 2 years. Even though I was doing the Defender show, she's a big Renegades fan. So we go to the Renegades DC game, last game of the year, and we ran into Luann Winningham's mom, receiver for Arlington, in our hotel. And she was just wonderful. And after the game, she got my daughter, who's younger, down on the field to meet Luan. And my daughter upstairs in her room on her curtains has his gloves hanging. He gave her the gloves, and they're still hanging up there in her room. So she's a Renegades fan for life, even if I'm doing this Defenders stuff. So,
well, as we go to a break, I'll be changing out my flag over here, and I think our next guest is gonna like my flag. We'll see. We'll get his reaction to it. But I want to thank Chris Tisdale too. Again, thank you for your service. He's over in Europe right now. He gave me a lot of good information, and a lot of what we talked about he provided me. So that's outstanding. And hopefully, Alex will be able to bring you on more as the season goes on, and maybe we'll even get a chance to bring Chris on as well. But again, it was awesome bringing you on, and good luck to DC this year. I mean, everybody knows who my favorite team is, but man, I tell you what, even though I would like to say in 2020 that DC was by far our biggest rival. And there isn't too many times that you can say that your biggest rival is also your second favorite team. So
that's cool.
But I would definitely say that in 2020, DC was 1A if they weren't one with me, because I just loved their style of play and how they played football. And we tried to beat them. We even tried to fight at the end of the game, and we still couldn't win. So
well, rivalries make it fun.
I will tell you, the drive from St. Louis to DC, my daughter and I made that drive, and driving to Washington, D.C. seemed like a hop, skip, and a jump going there. But when we had to leave late afternoon from D.C. to drive back home, it was a killer, man.
It was a haul. Well, you're a true fan, then, no doubt, to make that trek.
All right. Well, again, thank you very much for joining us. And as matchups warrant, we are definitely going to have you back if you'll come back on. So we'll let you go for now, but we'll talk again.
Hey, thanks for having me at the show. And until we meet again, so long, everybody.
Good luck, DC.
Thanks, Alice.
The Fighting Beer Snakes, baby.
Well, it was awesome having Alex on. And again, Chris, thanks for your service. We are going to take a quick break. And when we come back, it's going to be time to go from red to blue. So courtesy of the UFL, we will be right back.
The best of the best is coming together. There's no more what ifs. The long one lead now.
ready to shut it off. I'm number one in the building.
There's no more talk. Put up or shut up. We'll see who the top dogs is now.
Strap it up and line it up.
Joining forces means more power.
Delirium in D.C.
More potential. More reach.
Unbelievable.
Look for a chance to play ball, man. A chance to show that you still got it.
The hunger is unreal. Helmet goes on. Nothing else in the world matters.
Tell them I'm ready. Whenever they walk in, I'm ready.
The league that pushes the envelope and opens the door to living the dream.
I've been an underdog my whole career.
Football is kind of my last resort. If I could just get this one little break.
Breaks the moment, man. This is as fun as it gets right here.
United, they stand to stake a claim to springtime for America's favorite game. Are you ready?
Yep, I'm ready.
No, we ready. Yes, sir. Ready to run it back.
Hell yeah, I'm ready.
For a new era,
Let's go.
new challenges,
Best in the nation.
a new beginning.
The time is now.
Line it up, Playboy. Let's do it.
I can't wait to see you guys play.
Are you ready?
This is the United Football League.
Just don't blink.
This is more than a game. It's passion that fuels us. The action.
My goodness.
The excitement. The pride.
To the end zone. Touchdown.
Where stars emerge.
He got smoked.
Where legacies begin.
You're feeling awfully confident right now.
Where the future of football is taken to new heights.
Touchdown. Bam. He got whacked.
Get ready
Just bad intentions. Wow.
for more football this spring.
Playing with some swagger.
A new UFL season kicks off on March 28th.
We are back. Does that backdrop ever get old, Brett? You see that? Is that not?
That's my favorite logo, man. That's my favorite logo.
Kick-ass flag you've ever seen in your life.
Return of the Bandit. I wonder what's going to happen. That is their theme night, their first home game this year in Arlington at Choctaw Stadium. Is Return of the Bandit. Could it be? Could the Bandit logo be back on the helmets? We shall see.
Well, let's do the official Arlington intro, courtesy of the UFL, and then we're going to bring on our next guest.
We love the moments, the memories, the magic, the game.
I promise you we're going to win this game.
So let's get more. More action, more celebration, more unforgettable. More football. More of what you love.
Oh, yeah. So, Brett, without further ado, let's bring on this guy. He's never had a lack of energy, so I fully expect him to bring it. But let's bring him on, none other than Gabe Garcia.
What is up, fellas? How you guys doing tonight, man? What is up? Hey, a year ago, you guys brought me on. Me and Brett were straight. Remember? Brett, it took me all year to do this, and I'm sorry. But damn, you were right. You were absolutely right. Damn it.
Hey, see, this is why I like Gabe, everybody, because, look, not many people can admit when I'm right, but
yeah, you guys, that game, man, that was something. That first half, I remember watching it, and I'm like, okay, man, it was close, and then the second half, you just saw the experience. I mean, that team was just so well prepared, man. But
yeah,
shout out to your Stallions, man. Y'all did last year, so I had to come in like that. All right, I had to eat my crow before we get into this thing.
Hey, man, I don't know if you've seen our preseason rankings that I put out, but I'm pretty high on Arlington this year, man.
Let me find that, and I'll put that up for everyone. Just just a lot of necessary changes where they needed to make them. I'm pretty excited. I think like last year we came into this thing. They changed up the defense. There were a lot of new faces.
but we were all still expecting it to be the same defense, and it wasn't. But you see how many close games they had last year. They had I think it was like 4 games that they lost by less than 5 points, 2 of them by 1 point, and then it was that DC game, man, that first one, it really made me bitter for the I'll ask you guys about this later, your opinions for the whole, 4th and 12 thing. I think I got to go to 15, but I think that was the game that made me decide that, because just kind of some games like that where they let them get away. And I think a lot of people, and I even saw all of you guys afterwards just talked about how, and even players on other teams, they would talk about how Arlington by the end of the season, they were probably the best, 3-win team in the history of football. They would make comments like that because there was just so many games.
Oh, man, that was a totally different team at the end of last year. And again, Arlington, this is 2 years in a row where they've started slow. But I'm going to tell you, man, with acquisitions like Chris Odom on the edge, Reuben, Foster at middle linebacker, and some of the other signings you guys have recently made, I'm real high on Arlington this year.
Yeah, I really feel defensively, obviously, I mean, they were the problem last year. Their defense was at times as bad as their offense was good. You know what I mean? Like it was such a strange turnaround from 2023, because in 2023, their defense was really good. Their offense couldn't do nothing. And then they probably brought in Luis Perez right before. Oh, I'm going to say it for you, man. Luis
the
Perez.
King of Spring.
Luis Perez, baby.
I told Ed, I said, man, every time I try to say it like Gabe, I just frustrate myself.
I don't sound authentic when I try to say it. So.
No, me neither.
I love it, man.
But all I know is last year when Arlington played in St. Louis, Arlington started out 0-6, but they won 3 of their last 4. So I think that was kind of indicative. They finished the way their season could have actually gone, because the game that they played in St. Louis, Arlington had St. Louis dead to rights.
Yeah, they had them beat, and
they had them dead to rights, and somehow or another we pulled it out. I still don't quite understand it. And when we had Chuck Long on, the offensive coordinator for Arlington,
I caught that one. Yeah,
a little over a month ago, and he couldn't even really understand that either, how that happened. But
but see, that's the beauty of this league, though, because a lot of their rules, like I was complaining about the 4th and 12 needs to be 4th and 15, whatever, but their rules are in place to make the game exciting, but they're authentic to this league alone. Like, I wouldn't want to see that whole 4th down and, in the NFL, because I'm like, no, that's ours here at UFL.
Right.
What I mean? But it gives teams like that, like I said, that DC game with Arlington, Arlington controlled that entire game up until about the last 6 minutes of the game. And then everything just fell apart. So it just goes to show you one thing that we love about this league, and of many, many things we love about it. It's just games like that, and that oh man, that Battlehawks game, that field goal, that one broke my heart, man. I really wanted that one because I wanted to be able to come on and face you guys. 3/4 of the season, and we finally got a dang win, man. You know what I mean? Nah, but I was always just there either way, win or lose, man. And I really love watching these teams. Like, man, you guys, I meant to say, Alex, man, I love hearing that dude talk football. I can hear Alex listen to him talk football all day. He's just so smart. And I was listening to what you were telling him, man, about how you like DC, and I know they're supposed to be like one of our rivals, but I feel the same way. DC is just one of those teams that's like, I cannot hate them. So in that game, that game when they came back, I'm a big fan of Jordan Thomas, so I root for him to do well, but not against us, man. Why you got to do a comeback like that?
They just play a style of game that it's just tough, and it just commands respect.
Yeah. So as far as the Arlington defense, the changes that were made, I mean, their secondary is going to be strong. They're deep. I'm glad that Joe Powell, they're bringing him back for the whole season. He was part of that championship team in 2023 when their defense kind of carried them, and he was a leader on that defense. So for them to not bring him back last year, it really hurt. It really hurt. So they bring him back late in the year, and you can see the energy that he brought. You can just see it. And so he's coming back. You know, him and Brady Breeze could possibly, if Brady Breeze comes in and does what I think he can do alongside Joe Powell, that could be one of the best safety duos in the league this year. At least the potential is there for that. So it's going to be interesting. So the secondary, I'm not worried about. Vic Beasley is obviously gone. Okay, so Odom comes in. Jabril Cox, one that obviously I'm familiar with as a Cowboys fan. And, you know, I followed him at LSU as well. A lot of potential there. The injuries just kind of got him early in his career with Dallas. But the potential for this dude is through the roof if he can stay healthy. I'm really excited to see what Jabril Cox is going to do here in Arlington. Straight up.
Well, as you know, head coach Bob Stoops and offensive coordinator Chuck Long go way back to their playing days in Iowa back in the early 80s. And, you know, when Coach Stoops moved on to Oklahoma, he ends up bringing Chuck Long out there, and he was with Oklahoma for 5 years, and Chuck Long was offensive coordinator for the final 3 years that he was with Oklahoma. So they've just kind of followed each other. And so what do you see? Have you seen anything so far this year? I know we're early in camp, but is there anything that you've seen so far this year with their style or the type of player that they brought in that gives you any kind of indication? You know, offensive coordinator, you know, Chuck Long said, you know, with I won't say it, Luis Perez. Close? Was that better? Was that that's not bad, is it?
It's better.
That's getting better. That's respectable.
Perez.
Yes.
There you go. It's almost like, you know, with the UFL, they're always, you know, they're short on coaching staff. But he made a comment that, you know, you re-signed your top receiver. You got your king of spring quarterback, and like Chuck Long
Sal
said,
Cannella needs to not scare me like that, man. Sal Cannella waited until freaking the last minute to sign, and my heart was like, okay, that was gonna be all right. So that was
But he said it's almost like it gives Arlington 2 additional coaches on their staff.
Yeah.
Because he basically says, you know, he can look at Luis, he can look at wide receiving core, and he can just say, these guys are going to show you what to do, and just let them go. That's just how good they are. And in fact, Coach Long fully, you know, says that if Perez wants to, he's going to make a hell of a coach someday.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think, you know, I've seen guys. We've all seen them, right? The NFL fanboys, the ones that just refuse to watch this league, but they hate on it when they've never even watched a game. I've had these conversations, and I keep them short with them because I ain't gonna deal with it. But where they're looking at Perez and they're like, hey, you know what? Oh, this dude never played football and learned off of YouTube. He must be trash. Why am I gonna watch that? And I'm like, watch the dude play. And I think the fact that when people want to say, oh, he learned how to play the position from YouTube, that just speaks to his intelligence.
Yeah.
His intelligence of the game. And so I agree, Ed. I think there is a very good future for this dude in coaching, you know, when he decides to finally hang up the cleats. But that wide receiver core you talked about, man, I am very excited about it. What Chuck Long was able to do last year, now with a whole season that he had with Luis Perez, and now they're going to come back with another one. Tyler Vaughn's, that was big. I mean, that's our main guy. Would it be far-fetched to call him top 4 in the league? Maybe at least for expectations this season, maybe 5. I mean, would any of you guys agree with that? And at least in expectations. You know, we got Winningham coming back, Manigo, just Devontae Payton, just so much speed in that wide receiver group. And then you've got the big tight end that Sal Cannella, that when you use those speedsters, man, and you got Sal Cannella, you know, underneath with a linebacker who is overmatched. it's a dangerous thing. And what the problem was last year was the running game. You know, I mean, shout out to Davion Smith, but it wasn't happening last year.
Yeah.
This team. So I think bringing Balaj in now, who's got he's got a little bit of NFL experience there. You know, he was with with San Antonio last year. I'm kind of excited to see what they're going to do with this running back room, but I do think that it's going to come down to the run game at least, because I think the pass game is going to be there. But if this offense is going to take that next step, it's got to be in the run game, because if they can get a run game going with that speed at wide receiver and Sal Canelo underneath, man, oh, potential's crazy. But that's a big if. It's a big if, man. Running back's a question mark, no doubt about that.
So, Brett, what are your thoughts on what you're seeing from Arlington heading into the season? I know in your way too early rankings, you had them as high as number 2 in the XFL conference. So,
I think they're very even with San Antonio and DC roster wise. Perez. I anticipate Arlington to start faster this season than what they have the previous 2 seasons. And you go back and look at all those close games they lost. It's just like the DC game. You know, I was headed, I think I left at halftime, headed to Birmingham to Protective Stadium to watch the late game that night, which was the Stallions. And I'm trying to follow it going down the interstate at 100 miles an hour. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me, you know, and I'm trying to keep from wrecking. I'm like, wow, you just don't ever know. And I did a poll, Gabe, also. I prefer the 4th and 15 over the 4th and 12, just to bring that up.
Yeah.
But I gave
15
Arlington the edge. Huh?
4th and 12 just doesn't seem.
It doesn't seem difficult enough.
It doesn't seem ominous.
I agree.
4th and 15 just seems so much different.
That's my thing too. I mean, we were seeing it converted successfully most of the time last season, and as I was seeing it happen every week, I'm like, see, this is why it's got to be 15. Those extra 3 yards
make a difference.
That makes a big difference. It really, really does from play calling on both sides of the ball. So yeah, I really wish they would have done that this year. Hopefully they'll think about doing that next year. But yeah, that's the way I see it. I just think it's too easy because it replaces the onside kick, which that's all. What has the onside kick always really been? It's that last desperation move. So it's a difficult one because that's why it's desperate. 4th and 12 doesn't seem too desperate.
Right. Yeah, I'm giving Arlington the edge over San Antonio. I think they're very, very evenly matched in DC, but I just feel that San Antonio's schedule is just so brutal.
Oh, it starts all on the road.
Yeah, 4 home games, 6 road games, and then you go down the list. I want to say they're at Birmingham, they're at Michigan, and then on top of the XFL schedule, it's not setting up favorable. Now, look, they might win a championship this year. They made it to the championship game last year, but they've got an uphill climb with that schedule.
And I look at your week 1 opponent is San Antonio at home, and I know it's kind of picking up steam from last year. They call it the I-35 series now, right?
Yeah, they're excited, man. Everybody, San Antonio, they're excited. I guess if this is, this is my ideal game to start with. You know what I mean? Because it is the rival, and it's really our squad's chance right off the bat to see how prepared we are for a team of this caliber. You know, and same with San Antonio. Like everybody's still wondering, okay, was last year a fluke or not? This is where they got to prove it this season. You know, as long as they're competing for a playoff spot, they proved that, hey, we were legit last year. So a lot on the line going into the week 1 besides just, the 2 of the 3 teams out of Texas going head to head. I mean, it's really just about both of these teams trying to find out who they are going into this year. Like, are the Renegades really better than last year? They got to prove that. San Antonio is going to come in week 1 ready to prove, like, look, we were legit last year. So I'm a little bit worried, but I'd be more worried if we were playing Birmingham again to start the season.
Well,
to be honest,
and you can't afford, last year with the slow 0-6 start that you had. This year, 4 of your first 5 games are at home, and you finish the season with 4 out of 5 away. So you almost got to come
right
out of
into
those
what Brett's saying about them starting strong. That could play right into that.
Yeah, you've got to. I mean, I got to think in those first 5 games, at the very least 3-2. But you got, best case scenario, 4-1.
Yes,
puts you in a really good position. But when you look at your first 5 games, you've got San Antonio, Birmingham, St. Louis, DC. Nobody knows how Houston's going to be. Houston completely, revamped their roster. So at this point, you can't really say how Houston's going to be. I mean,
I just don't. With so many changes, though, I don't know if I see it like a team at their full potential for this season by week 2. There's just going to be a lot of kinks that all those new players coming in got to work. But then again, like you say, who knows? I could be wrong, man. Houston could come in and start 2-0, and then everybody's going to be like, what? Houston? Houston? And we're like, yeah, Houston, man. So it's, I just, the Birmingham game, I was hoping I was hoping for a Birmingham by mid-season. So we'd be a little bit better. I know where we were going into that game, but I mean, man, week 3, Birmingham. Because let's be real. I mean, I know I'm telling this to myself. Be real about it, Gabe. Birmingham. I mean, Brett, y'all are the class of this league. Thing is, they came into this new league last season, knowing that everybody else was seeing them as the evil empire. But I think what this team did, they embraced it. They said, yeah, you want to call us the evil empire? Watch what we're going to do to everybody week in, week out.
I tell you what, we're going to get everybody's best shot this season. And I tell you what, that's a hell of a Birmingham's got a tough schedule. You go to DC week 1 and then to Michigan week 2. I mean, Birmingham could be going back home 0-2. I mean, realistically.
I can appreciate the persona that Brett puts on while he's on the show, but behind the scenes, he uses giddy up a few times. I think he's probably a little more confident than what he's letting on right now. But
look,
and you should be though, because the expectations.
We'll be confident as long as Skip Holtz is in charge, man. He is fantastic. Absolutely. He's fantastic.
As much as I love Bob Stoops, he is my coach, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I do believe, and Bob Stoops is rightfully my favorite coach in the league, but I believe Skip Holtz is the best head coach in this league. No disrespect to Wade Phillips, any of the others, all great coaches, but Skip Holtz, come on, man. I mean, just what he has done, it's just crazy. I am really surprised, and maybe they have, and I just don't know about it, but that the NFL has not come calling yet for this dude.
When I spoke to him in November in Birmingham, he had told me face to face that he had 5 college offers already, because there was a rumor that Rice, and he said, look, I'm not going anywhere. He said, I really like this. He said, I have fun. I said, I know you do. It's obvious. He said, man, it's just, and I think this is an advantage to the UFL now with some of the coaches we're getting, but because NFL's a different level of stress. And then in college, you've got this nonsense, the NIL and the transfer portal. And a lot of these older coaches, they just don't want to deal with it. They just like to coach ball. They've already got their dollars in the bank, and they're still competitive and they know what they're doing. They just don't want to deal with the year-round nonsense that's involved with that side of it now. So
it makes sense.
I'm very pleased with the league's coaching,
Yeah, and it makes sense. I think a lot of these guys, there's such a good mix of young talent coming up now that doesn't get drafted. And they're learning from like a lot of guys that are veterans of the NFL that are playing here now. And so, it's a good mix of that. And I think it's a lot of respect because you've got the veterans who are more humbled now. And you got the young guys are humbled at the fact that they're trying to get to the NFL. And I think the coaching, it makes it that much easier. When I did my interview with Joe Powell few weeks back, and we talked about about Coach Stoops, and he really talked about how Coach Stoops trusts them. And I said that's got to be, a lot. These coaches got to sleep well at night with some of these veterans they got, because they don't have to coach these guys up. The NFL, you deal with a lot more young guys or egos coming in through free agency or whatnot that you have to try to coach up. UFL, it seems like it's a lot less stressful, I guess, for these coaches.
Yeah.
So that makes sense what you're saying, definitely.
Well, what you mentioned about, real quick about Joe Powell, you could tell when Arlington signed him last year, the team on the defensive side of the ball was totally different. Totally different. It's like they had their quarterback on defense back. It was totally different. They really missed him at the start of last season. Sorry, Ed.
Well, I know that when we had Chuck Long on, it really looks like head coach Stoops really enjoys what he does, and Chuck Long made the comment that they have total latitude to call plays, to do what they need to do to prepare for the games. I mean, Bob Stoops he's just not a micromanager. He gives them the latitude to do what they need to do, and he pretty much stays out of it. I got a kick out of the fact that Chuck says Bob Stoops refers to him as Charlie. So he always calls him Charlie because that's back from the Hayden Fry days in the 80s when Chuck Long was quarterback and Bob Stoops was defensive cap. He was the captain of the defense, and Coach Hayden Fry always called Chuck Long Charlie. So Bob Stoops still
Charlie. And I love that because it shows trust. So it's kind of, it makes sense why he brings his guys with him here. The guys that he has had under his wing for so many years, because it's trust. I mean, yeah, go ahead. I ain't gonna micromanage. I trust you to do your thing and have your boys ready to go, your game plan ready to go. So I think that. I do think
and hey, look, people forget, but Arlington caught lightning in a bottle in 2023, and was the best team at the end of the season. I don't care what their record was. Look, there was 8 teams in the league. They made it to the playoffs, and they took care of business in the playoffs and in the championship game and beat I don't think anyone other than an Arlington fan thought that Arlington was going to beat DC that day. That was a hell of a game.
Even DC, from what Joe Powell told me in our interview, he says he was, we were talking about that game, and he said he remembers, they had to stay at the same hotel, and he said, man, we would walk by those guys from DC, and they were just, because remember DC was unbeaten. They went through that season, so he said, man, like they were really like just looking down on us. We would walk by them into the hotel. They would, crack jokes. They were really looking down on us, man. Like he goes, they thought that they really like had us beat even before the game started, man. So that's why it was even more beautiful to see my boys come together the way they did. I was proud of that.
Man, that reminds me of a quick story. I'm a Bama guy from Tuscaloosa. Do you remember back in the U's heydays in the 80s and 90s, right? All right. Miami had already just beat up on Alabama in the 89 Sugar Bowl. So then we're going to the 92 National Championship game at the Sugar Bowl. Bama and Miami's undefeated. They were down in New Orleans for, of course, the week before the game, partying and practicing, whatever. And they said every night Miami players were running that mouth every night, trying to start fights, throwing stuff at our players, just goating them, talking about what they were going to do to them. And our players listened to that for a week. And now Miami scored a late touchdown, but Alabama won that game 34-13 as a heavy underdog.
Let a fire. Yeah.
Yep.
Exactly.
Well, one thing I wanted to touch on too is I've always been a stickler for third down efficiency. And last year, I know one of the Achilles heels for the St. Louis Battlehawks was third down efficiency. They were dead last in the league at 31% on third down, and you're just not going to be able to get any kind of flow or sustained drives with a 31% third down efficiency. Now we talk about Arlington last year. Arlington led the league in third down efficiency. They were at 49%.
Wow.
Which I think is a big time salute to your quarterback, pronounced
Luis Perez, baby.
There you go. There you go, because it just shows the command, that he has of the offense and knowing the players like the back of his hand and just keeping those sticks moving, right?
Yeah,
And,
I feel
it's
so
just
comfortable
so
when he's
critical.
back there. Yeah, it is. It's just I remember watching these games last year, and it would be third down and 6, 3rd and 7. Heck, there was times 3rd and 14. And okay, I told you guys I'm a Cowboys fan. Yeah, I know. But I get really stressed out Cowboy third downs. When I'm watching Luis Perez, for some reason, I'm just like, nah, Chuck Long's got this call in for him. He's got this. He's got this. And I was seeing that. I was comfortable with that. The problem was half the time we just either couldn't get it in the end zone after a long drive, or the defense just wouldn't, things like that. But third down efficiency, it's really interesting for you to bring that up, because they did this without a running game. I mean, this running game averaged just over 3.5 yards a carry, and they were among the worst in the league. So to be able to be that efficient on third down really, really speaks a lot about Luis Perez.
Yeah, Coach Long talked about how a lot of times he'd put the game plan together with Luis Perez. After practice, after they watch the film and put the last week to rest and start putting the game plan together for the current week, that a lot of times the two of them sat down and did it. So I got to believe if Arlington is able to solve their issues on defense, and like you say, they're able to get a quality running game put together, I think you could see a totally different Arlington team this year.
Absolutely. 33 all new faces at camp this year. Now, granted, not all 33.
Yeah, I didn't know. I didn't realize it was that many.
Yeah. 33 new faces at camp, which obviously that'll lessen as they get into cuts. But I think that just says a lot that they knew that, okay, there's changes that got to be made. And that is what I wanted to see going into this season. So that's why it's making me feel, cautiously optimistic, but optimistic nonetheless. Especially when you got Luis Perez back there, baby. We always got a chance. Well, with
Luis, I've got a special place in my heart for him from, he was a starter with the Birmingham Iron in the AAF, and I think he was third on our roster. Didn't nobody think he was, who is this kid? You start hearing this story and start watching him like, this is a kid I could kind of get behind. Luis, more times than not, he's not going to beat you. He's going to make the best out of whatever he can do. But, I mean, he can only do so much. He's not a mobile guy, but he's very intelligent. He's gritty. And his ball placement is usually right on the money. He doesn't have a cannon, but your intermediate routes, if there's a window, he can find it.
Yeah. And, I mean, one thing he doesn't have is the mobility that this league really covets. And I mean, you as a Stallions fan last year with Martinez, man, what this dude was doing on the ground was insane.
Yeah.
And Luis doesn't have that, but I would put money on an argument about this dude being the best pure passer in the league. Maybe not the strongest arm. Maybe not. Maybe not best pure passer, but maybe just pocket quarterback, because of the fact that he sees the field so very well. And Brett, you said that so good when you said he's not gonna try to overpower you. He's gonna he's gonna take whatever you're gonna give him, which is why they ended up in those third downs at times, sometimes in fourth down. But he's gonna say, fine, it's second down. If you're just, it's 2nd and 10. If you're just gonna give me this little 5-yard route, I'm gonna take it. 3rd and 4th down, we'll get it there. So he's gonna take. I guess he'll kill you with 1,000 cuts. That's the way I
yeah. Right. It's just like the first game of last year, the two defending champions from USFL and the XFL. I'm not going to lie, we were at the watch party in Birmingham, and I was getting nervous because, once again, to Ed's point, we could not get Arlington off the field on third down in the first half last year. It was a different story in the second half, but that first half I was very uneasy.
Yeah, that was really a tale of two halves. I mean, that game was, when I remember I went into halftime, I was like, all right, look at, we're good. We're hanging with Birmingham. So
Yeah.
and then the second half happened, and I think Birmingham's just the experience and the preparation. This to me is the most prepared team in the league. That's not saying anything about, I think Beck also is very well known for that, having his team prepared, but something about Skip Holtz, man. This squad, they make the necessary changes, and that's what they did at halftime in that game. Like, they started saying, okay, so we weren't giving you the long ball in the first half, so that's when you guys started doing a lot of those short routes, with those quick traps up the middle, man, and you guys were getting blocked, hitting the seam, and it started wearing us down. So that game was really a testament to the coaching staff, in my opinion.
Most impressive thing about Skip and what he's done in Birmingham is 3 championships with 3 totally different quarterbacks.
Yeah.
I mean, good luck finding that in this sport.
It's impressive. And then now they got a strong room this year. Magoo coming back. Speaking of quarterbacks, Ed, I gotta ask you, man. My boy, man. He was belong up there with Pettis. Like, man, AJ McCarron was that dude for me, man. I really, every week I was like, come on, AJ. What's going on, man? Is Battle Ox Nation all right? Like, are you guys, because I know they love this dude there, and rightfully so. But is this team, I guess I'm trying to say, Ed, is that I'm not quite as convinced as a lot of people about this quarterback room situation yet until I see it, because AJ, in my opinion, still gave y'all the best chance to win with those weapons. I mean, him and Butler had such a thing.
Yeah.
When he was healthy.
Yes,
yeah.
Yes.
I don't think we're going to ever really know what the real situation was there that caused Coach Beck and AJ to kind of fall out there. You hear rumors of what happened in the locker room, but unless you're actually in the locker room, you can't really confirm one way or another. You got some that would say it's Manny Wilkins. I don't think that's the case. In fact, I think Manny Wilkins may be the 3rd string quarterback.
Oh, okay.
I really think Duggan is going to be the starter. But again, the jury is out on that. San Antonio is really high on Kellen Mond.
Yeah.
And of course, he's hometown boy. I get all that. But, I had the luxury, or what, I guess it wasn't a luxury. We drafted him in the 2nd round out of Texas A&M, the Minnesota Vikings. And he was on the roster. I think we finally let him go in the 2nd year, but he ended up not really panning out. So as high as they are on Kellen Mond, I'm not exactly sure that that's quite going to happen either. One thing before we let you go, I gotta come clean on the Arlington quarterback. Say it again.
Luis Pettis, baby. That's the man, baby.
Because
King is free.
I gotta admit, and some of it I think was the frustration that I had as a St. Louis Battlehawks fan. Always hearing King of Spring.
Yeah.
And so last year I kind of made a point of referring to him as the 0-1 King of Spring, then the 0-2 King of Spring, made it all the way up to 0-6. And, in my own mind, I don't even know that I quite believed it myself.
You would be the hater. I love that you admit that. I love that you admit being a hater.
Yeah, he was a hater now.
But
why are you hating on my boy so bad?
I think I did it sometimes just because I knew it really bothered. I think Jersey didn't sleep for like 3 weeks when I kept saying 0-4 King of Spring, 0-5 King of Spring, 0-6 King of Spring. But I totally get it. I do. The more I get to watch him play, the more I get a respect for him. But the frustration as a Battlehawk fan is, AJ McCarron was never able to fully I mean, he'd get the Battlehawks right there, and then when it was about time to put up or shut up, he'd get an injury that just made him 70% for the playoffs, if even that. And so
You
here
know what
we are.
my biggest fear was, to be honest, when this was before Magoo was re-signed with y'all, Brett. I was like, oh, AJ gonna end up over there with Skip Holtz. I was like, hell no, man.
I wanted it to happen because of the attendance. You know, I'm such a big league guy, and I want the league to succeed. I think it would have been ideal, but I knew. I know. I'd like to say I know Skip pretty well because I've had numerous conversations with him and listened to him speak over the years, and you know, at all these events, and hung out with him in the hotel in Canton 1 year after the championship. I wasn't sure about their personalities meshing, and I knew that AJ's style of play would not mesh with Skip's system. He likes the run option, and AJ was never that guy, and he definitely at this age is not that guy. So in my mind, I was hoping, but then I just knew it.
Yeah, Brett, but
it wasn't gonna work.
Brett, you know as well as I do too, and I commented to you several times during the season last year. I would watch Birmingham's games, and I would watch Martinez come off the field, and I would watch Holtz lay into him. Why didn't you throw it? Why didn't you throw it? It was there, and then you could just see that over time it just wore on Martinez.
Yeah,
and I gotta believe that if AJ was with Birmingham,
they would not have meshed.
So yeah, head coach Holtz would not be able to talk to AJ like that. He just wouldn't.
And Skip, he'll let you know. I mean, he does not disrespect the players, but it's Skip's team. He's in charge, and I notice how the players hang out with Skip and talk to Skip at these events, and I've never once thought of a player looking or acting disrespectful towards Skip, because I mean, Skip just reminds you of, you know, like your dad, you know, just like your dad or your uncle, you know, you just, I mean, he's a good guy, and I just, I never thought the personalities would mesh there, and I hate it because, you know, AJ's a Bama boy. He brought us multiple national championships, and I think it would have been good for him to end his career back in Alabama, you know, and it would have instantly bumped the crowd 25%. But there again, look at who Birmingham signed today with Case Cookus. Case Cookus is not a mobile guy. I was not anticipating that.
Yeah. I actually like that signing for you guys. You know, because
it's a different quarterback than what Skip's had in Birmingham.
Yeah, and we've seen what Case Cookus can do. You know,
if he's got protection,
yes, and I think I mean with that squad, it's a good thing. I mean, I don't know if you guys are going to be doing the committee thing again. Who knows? But I mean, there's definitely he adds that kind of pocket presence, I guess, where he doesn't have to depend on the mobility as much. So, yeah, man, I dig it.
Well, Coach Stoops looks like he definitely is enjoying being the head coach of the Arlington Renegades. But when they played in St. Louis last year and they got off the bus, we always made a point of we was always over there when they got off the bus. He got off the bus and he was sporting those skinny jeans. And I thought, look at that. Look at those Stoops in the skinny jeans.
I'm glad I didn't see that, because I probably would have made a meme out of that.
I mean, you see something like that as a Renegades fan, and you want to tell Stoops, how am I going to explain this? As a Renegades fan, am I going to defend this?
Take that Bandit logo off.
God, again, I just can't get enough. Look at that logo. Is that not?
I love it. They
have to bring that logo back.
Yeah.
So ask him the question, Brett. Ask him the question about theme night.
Yeah, the theme night, Gabe. Game 1 theme night, Arlington theme night. I mean, I know Ed's put it on the screen. many weeks I asked Chuck Long about it, and he looked at me like I was crazy, which I guess I am. But Return of the Bandit is the title. Now, why in the hell would you put that as your theme night if you're not going to bring the Bandit logo back? What else are they talking about?
They have to. You can't tease the fans like that.
No.
You're trying to get the fans not just to come out. You're trying to get them to come out for more than one night. You tease them like that, you're going to piss them off.
I'm telling you, that Bandit logo has cost Arlington more in attendance than what they will ever know. I'm telling you, man, it's marketing.
It's beautiful. But
So
that R for the AR, it's boring to me. It looks corporate.
It does.
Absolutely.
It looks like a drugstore logo.
So if you're a betting man, Gabe, and I know you are you looking at that theme night thinking to yourself, this is the year Arlington's going back to their old logo?
I believe so. And they're keeping it. When you look at their video, you know, some of the stuff that I'm seeing from training camp, everything, it's just the blank blue helmet. So they're keeping that under wraps for right now, which is smart, very smart business wise. So it's building anticipation amongst us. Don't do us wrong. Do not do us wrong. So what is I do believe if I got to bet on it and using that slogan, yeah, I mean it's got to. They know the fans have been asking for it. Not even just the Renegades fans, the league, like you guys. You know, you're not. I mean, you're obviously you do want everybody in the league. We all cheer for each other. That's one thing I love about this league and the fan bases. But you know, even people that are fans of other teams are like, no, we love that logo.
Yeah,
that logo is so, and they know everybody in this league that supports it wants that logo. You bring that logo back, and your marketing just goes, it's up there. It's back. You know?
Bring that logo back, and Arlington beat San Antonio week 1. Here we go.
Luis Perez, baby. Don't do this thing.
Luis, whatever he says, Perez.
So I am gonna take a quick break. And I didn't tell you about this, Gabe, but I wanna do this, and you tell me whether you're up for it or not. One of the things I always liked about listening to your show was that you always finished your shows by talking something a little inspirational to kind of give everybody a pick me up to continue on and fight the good fight.
That's it.
So I'm going to go to a break.
That way. That's why I do it. That's why I do it.
I'm going to go to a break. When we come back, I'm going to have you tell everybody where they can find you. And I sure hope that as the season goes on and matchups warrant it, we can bring you back on for talking matchups because I really think Arlington's bringing something to the table this year. So let's take a break, and when we come back,
real quick. Give us your record prediction.
7-3. We get into the playoff.
There we go.
Are you going to get into the playoffs as the division champs or as the wild card?
No, I think we'll be the wild card. I think there's going to be something. Just DC. Something about DC that just tells me like they're going to be, this year. I don't know. But I'm feeling something like that. 7-3. Do I stare at 8 games? 8 games is pretty. I mean, I'm trying. 7-3 is my cautiously optimistic.
You guys got a tough schedule.
Yeah. But I do think if they can start strong without, with the majority of home games in that first half, then I think they can carry some of that. And by mid-season, once they get through that first half, by mid-season, they'll be all primed with chemistry ready to hit the road. So that's what I am cautiously optimistic about. But I do think that they will get into the playoff.
So let's part the Red Sea. Let's take a break courtesy of the UFL. And when we come back, we'll talk more with Gabe Garcia.
Hey, beautiful Sunday morning.
He was pumping up his beer snake friends back in the north.
All UFL for a reason.
So many personalities on the field and in the stands in this league.
We love the moments, the memories, the magic, the game. So let's get more. More action. More celebration. More unforgettable. More football. More of what you love.
This is more than a game. It's passion that fuels us. The action.
My goodness.
The excitement. The pride.
To the end zone. Touchdown.
Where stars emerge.
He got smoked.
Where legacies begin.
You're feeling awfully confident right now.
Where the future of football is taken to new heights.
Touchdown. Bam. He got whacked.
Get ready.
Just bad intentions. Wow.
For more football this spring.
Playing with some swagger.
A new UFL season kicks off on March 28th.
So it's been awesome having you on, Gabe.
Thank you, man. Thank you for having me on. This was fun, man. Straight up, we're gonna do this again this year. This was fun.
So
man,
why don't you tell us where we can find you in social media, and when you get done there, kind of give us your parting inspirational talk.
All right. So you can find me on YouTube, of course. I haven't done a lot of my video stuff versions yet of Gridiron Nation, but it is up there. But you can find the audio version every single week on Spotify. And this year, now that the UFL is back, I will be doing the Hellraisers podcast meshed with it, with my Gridiron Nation. So I was gonna put the Hellraisers on, man. I love my logo, guys. I'm getting it re-put on with some dry heat stuff like that onto a foam board. So I don't have it. I had to go with Gridiron Nation. But you guys can find me on Facebook. Just search bar Gridiron Nation. I am there. I'm gonna be talking UFL all season long, man. You know, NFL is done. I will talk about a little bit of news, but it's gonna be all UFL from here going forward. And also, you can find me on X. I still wanted to say Twitter, but I'm trying. I'm trying, Elon. Okay, don't banish me. But no, you can find me on X. Just look up Gridiron Nation, or the handle is @1 Gridiron Nation. I am also on the new clone of that, I guess, Blue Sky under Gridiron Nation. Where else? Instagram, @GGarcia_.grid. So y'all can find me there. I'm on TikTok at Gridiron Nation Podcast. I was throwing up little tidbits about the game and stuff like that, man, thoughts and everything, and with my music as well. So you guys, you can follow my music there too. So that's where you'll find me. I probably spend more time on X and Facebook with the football stuff. So anything. So if y'all want to find me there, follow me, and if you're on X, follow me, and I'll follow you back.
It sounds like we got some work to do, Brett.
Man, don't even start.
I thought you could find us in a lot of places, but we ain't nothing compared to Gabe.
Man, it's hard work, man.
Gabe's around every corner, man.
You know how hard this is, man. I'm like, man, I haven't posted to X in a few days. I got to. It's hard work, man. I'm like, I swear, if I could get paid for this, I would hire me somebody, just one person. That is your job. You post every single day because I hate it.
Yeah, and that's what I do every day. And people wonder why I snap their head off when they make stupid ass comments.
Brett keeps coming back to me wanting more money, and I just keep telling him, we gotta see how things go first before I can give you any more money. So
yeah.
And hey, Ed knows. I understand. Just like what I was telling with the players union earlier. Just now's not the time. Just wait until we get in the black. Just wait until now's not a good time, guys.
Now's not the time to ask for the money. See, Brett's at least following his own mind, thinking with the players too. Like if I gotta wait, y'all gonna wait too. I don't care if you're the players. If I gotta wait for my money from Ed, y'all go Luis Perez, you're gonna wait for your money.
Yeah, I mean, we're just big. We're just big spring football fans, man, and I would hate to see something negative happen to spring football over greed at the wrong time. This is I can't keep repeating myself, but it's just not. This ain't the time for that.
I agree.
I agree.
And I'm the type of guy like with NFL and stuff and NBA, all that. I'm like, no, I'm like the players, like go get whatever they're going to give you. If they decide you're worth it, then go get your money. Don't feel bad about it. But yes, in this case, your sense, I do, because I want this thing to succeed just as much as you guys do. So, we ready to get up out of here, or you want?
Well, we've got it's Hump Day today.
Mm-hmm.
We've got a lot of people that are halfway through the work week. They're stressed to the max.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
they got work problems. They got problems at home. What does Dr. Gabe have to say?
I mean, the truth is, we all got problems. I mean, and I always feel it's cruel to tell somebody who's dealing with something and sometimes that's what people need to hear. Sometimes it's not. But I think it's also a way of telling somebody, look, we all got problems. So I'm telling you that I can understand. I can relate to you. We all have different issues every day. Me, my boss is stressing me out, and everything. And I try to leave work there. And that doesn't always work for us. You may have something bothering you, everybody, that's just in the back of your mind, something that and it's got you stressed and you can't really enjoy your peace. Everything that we have, we love watching football. We're on here doing these podcasts, man, just talking about a game we love, having fun doing it, because everything we've done, we've worked hard to be able to have this ability to do this. This is our peace. You know what I mean? And everybody out there has their form of peace at home. You work hard for it. Whether it's just sitting in your house watching TV, not bothering anybody, that's your mindset to be at peace, find it. That's the hard thing to do. So I get it. We're all dealing with stuff every single week, some worse than others. And sometimes it's hard to keep moving forward, but you got to. With that, you don't have no choice. You got to get up, brush it off. Life's always gonna be right there. Like I always say, to give you that left hook, it's always going to knock you down. Always. You get back up. We get back up and we proceed to do things like this, have fun, forget about those problems for just a little bit. Because this is our way of evolving around that. This is how you do it in life. This is how you get through every single day and face life's problems, is that you stand up to them and you say, you know what? I'm either going to find a way around it. As many times as I get knocked down, I'm going to get back up, find a way over it, find a way through it. Like what? Like water. Man, I idolize. Exactly like he says. What you got to do with all of life's problems, everybody. And it's easier said than done. But we can all relate to this. It's just get up every time. Evolve. Adapt to it. Okay? Keep walking forward. So in the words of the great Bruce Lee, fellas, be water, my friends.
That's awesome. Thanks again, Gabe, for coming on. And like I said, as matchups warrant, we'd love to bring you back on again.
I am always down. Yeah. As long as my schedule permits, I work in retail management, man. So, yeah.
Brett and I are going to send this show off. But in the meantime, if you want to sit backstage, we'll have some words with you after we sign off. So
sounds good.
Thanks for coming on, Gabe.
Thank you, guys, man. Love it. Loved it. Have fun, man. Thank you.
So, Brett, let's give some shout outs and tell us where they can find us and follow us and like us and all that good stuff before we get up and get out of here. And let's give some of the pages some love so they continue to let us share on their pages.
We are at, of course, The Bottom Line on Facebook, X, Instagram, and YouTube. It's The Bottom Line Podcast. I think on X, you can find us at TBL_2023. Again, I want to give also in our main groups, United Football League fans on Facebook. I think it's the one of the largest and best spring football groups. We've got around 28,000 members. Also, Birmingham Stallions fans. If you're a Birmingham Stallions fan, got over 12,000 members. Shout out to the Horsemen, the booster club in Birmingham. And again, thanks to UFL America, XFL Conference, all the groups that continue to let us post our content. Also, shout out to My Panther Pride, Lauren and Jesse. Those fellows are doing good things in the Michigan market. And again, thanks everyone for allowing us to post our show and our content and some of my edgy content from time to time. We really appreciate it.
And I would like to say, too, that I got the last of my flags delivered to me. So now I officially have all of the UFL flags. So opening weekend that St. Louis plays at home, we're going to have the Avenue of Flags going. Got the UFL flag behind me and the Bottom Line flag and all 8 teams. So we'll have the Avenue of Flags going. Also want to shout out to Excalibur, the official mascot of the St. Louis Battlehawks. He come out with a rally towel for the season, and he was gracious enough to let the Bottom Line put our logo on that rally towel for the season. So that's going to be cool. I seen the first layout of it today, and it's going to look pretty awesome. So we look forward to that. Next week, the 2 teams that we are going to preview are going to be the Michigan Panthers and the Birmingham Stallions.
Oh.
So we're doing back-to-back. Probably the favored 2 teams, at least going into preseason anyway. Now, again, we don't know how it's going to end up, but Michigan and Birmingham, there's going to be some pretty good fodder. I know we have some, hoping that the My Panther Pride is going to have some representation. We have one of our co-hosts, Mike Palco, that's a big Michigan fan. So we got to decide out of those 3 who we're going to let on, because if we have all 3 of them on, we may never get to Birmingham. So, so with that said, any parting shots, Brett? If not, I'm going to get us out of here.
I want to just a shout out to the league, man, to the UFL, Moose, Russ Brandon, Danny Garcia, Dwayne, Johnson, Fox, Fred Bird. Man, we really appreciate you guys, putting this league on. It's very entertaining. It's spring football. If you guys have noticed over the years, it's a cult-like following. And gosh, we don't ever want to go back to 7 months without football again. So here's to year-round football, and here's to the UFL.
With that said, we will see you next Wednesday, 8 p.m. Central. Have a good weekend, everybody.